Now, without any further ado, it's my pleasure to have Pastor John Thumma and Tony sitting over here in the corner, with us this morning. And John has a slide presentation and is going to share with us a little bit about the work in Gamerico, New Mexico.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Yate. Yate Abena. Good morning. It is good to be here. A little bit different than in Hoan Church, Hoan Najoni Church, house beautiful. The Navajos sit in the front. They want a good seat. Just kidding. But they do. They're not like we are back east here. They like to sit in the front. I will take questions at any time when you have questions. Try to give answers. We have this slide presentation's a little bit dated because I really struggle with making these presentations, this electronic stuff. But we'll get a good flavor and a good idea of what's happening in the Southwest. How much time do I have? Till 9:30.
So you have about 50 minutes.
I want you to know that an 8:30 Sunday school class is about 4 hours earlier than we start in the Southwest also. And the Easter week we had revival services. Started at 6:30 in the evening. And they last from 6:30. The preacher usually gets done around 11:15. And then we eat a full meal. So you can come into the service out there an hour and a half or 2 hours. We don't use the word late. That's not in the Navajo language. After it started and still be on time for the preaching. So, but I promised Pastor Mike, he was my preaching instructor, professor, and he said, there's only one thing wrong with your sermon, John. It's way too long for back east. So I'm going to try to listen to what he taught me. The high desert is a beautiful place. It's much different than here. Tony and I have been just so appreciating the grass and the trees and the flowers and all the things that we don't get to see out there. If you brought one of our cows from out there into here, he'd die in a day because he would just eat so much green grass that he would fall over, I'm sure. Although they say, the farmers say that the grass out there has more nutrients in it because it grows so slow. And actually they say that if you brought a cow from out there in, I don't know why I'm telling you about all these cow things, but I just ramble. But if you'd bring a cow from out there into here, he would actually starve on the grass here because he would eat so much grass, but there would be less nutrients in it than the forage out there. We average around 12 inches of rain in our area of the Southwest there in New Mexico a year. And when we get rain, there's always flower seeds in the ground waiting to bloom. They're just sitting there waiting. And if we get 2 days of rain, and then of course the sunshine, we average 350 days a year with sunshine in New Mexico. It's a wonderful blessing for an old Pennsylvania boy. But there are always seeds waiting to bloom. And I would submit to you that in Bowmansdale, there are seeds in people's lives just sitting there, waiting for the rain and the sunshine that you can bring forth as a congregation. I was waiting for somebody to change that, and then I realized I'm the one that does it. This is one of the flowers that I've seen this flower one time in 7 years. And it's awaiting all the other times, just sitting in the ground, waiting to come forth when we have rain. And we started out when Tony and I went out there 7 years ago. We had one church, Ho-Wandajonie, which is an all Native American church. Tony and I are the only Anglos there. And so this church is not actually on the reservation, but it's right beside the reservation. And in all reality, when you look at this church, its makeup and the people, you would see a reservation church. You would think you were absolutely on the reservation. The houses look a lot like the reservation. The people are like reservation people. And when I say that, there are 4 levels of acculturation, and that is how much the Native American leaves their culture and comes into the into the Anglo culture. And the people who come to this church are at the lowest level. At Ho-Wandajonie, I always say that 20% of the people speak only Navajo, the Navajo language. And then about 40%, don't check my math here, John, about 40% will speak English and Navajo. And then there will be the rest at the bottom who speak basically only English. But we do, at Ho-Wandajonie, everything we do is translated into the Navajo language. The other church, we'll see it a moment later, at Gamerco, is a very diverse church, not like Ho-Wandajonie. Carol McNutt started this church in 1984. There were 2 churches that were closed by the coal company, and they were brought together when this church was started. This church is very culturally sensitive. At the left there is an 8-sided sanctuary that is built like a hogan. A hogan is a type of howan. Howan is house, and a hogan is like, we would say, a brick house. So the 8-sided hogan is our sanctuary, and out to this side, the right side here, is the fellowship hall, the kitchen, and so forth. You can see from the grass there that we do not have an outside custodian whom I met this morning like you do. And your church is so beautiful. I thought of picture postcards when I pulled up out front. Our grass is trimmed by the sheep the sheep and the horses when they come, and they haven't been here yet this week. So the grass is high. Your perception, if you came to Ho-Wandajonie, would be that this is not being taken care of the way we take care of our church. And you would be right. But it is being taken care of the way our people take care of, it's their life. And if we take over that part of it, then we own the church, and it is not their facility, it is not their church. This is a wooden building. Right now our steeple is leaning. We had sustained 70-mile-an-hour winds the last couple weeks, and so the steeple has been taken loose from its moorings. Orrin will need some help out there when you get out. This 2 years ago was our young adult class. I would like to tell you that they are doing well today, but I can't tell you that. Every one of them is in a cycle away from the Lord right now. So pray for them. Pray for them. I won't tell you all the stories, but they need prayer. Just as the people, the seeds that could bloom here in Bowmansdale, need prayer. The other church is the Gummerco Church. Gummerco is a mouthful, and it stands for Gallup American Company. Gummerco is a coal town. There was deep mines under, not strip mines, but underground mines in Gummerco for years and years. They supplied the coal that went to the power plant that supplied electric for the town of Gallup. Carol McNutt started this church. No, not Carol. As you were, I forget who it was. You remember, Warren? I can't say his name. Anyway, someone, one of our pastors started this church about 32 years ago, I think is the numbers. This church is very diverse. Anglos has Anglo congregation, Navajo congregation. Sometimes there's probably some Zuni Indians there. At times there's African Americans there. At times there's Mexican Americans. One of our outreaches that we are struggling to make happen right now is to have a Mexican American service, because the town of Gummerco is changing from Anglo people to Hispanic people. In fact, it's probably 80% Hispanic now, and we feel that we need to work at reaching the Hispanic people. We fellowship about 30 people at Gummerco, and between 30 and 50 at Howan. Not too often 50, but if the whole family comes in, we approach 50, because there can be around 14 to 17 in that family come. And yes, that's in one pickup truck.
How far apart are these two churches?
The two churches are 18 miles apart.
And you pastor both?
Yes. I told you a little bit of a story. At Gummerco, we start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we open with a worship song, and then I preach, and then we greet one another, and then Tony and I go to the other church, all but the first Sunday of the month. The first Sunday of the month, we spend the whole time at the Gummerco church, and we don't go out to the Howan church. And on that Sunday, James Manning, who is the interpreter at the Howan church, he has the entire service out there. And the Howan church is supposed to start at 11:15, but that is Navajo time. Pastor Mike was certain to tell me this morning that we were on Anglo time, not Navajo time in here. And the Navajos say that Anglos have watches, but we have time. And there's a lot of importance to that, a lot of truth. The old Navajo elder said that our federal government is the only group he knew that could cut. He was talking about daylight savings time, and he said, our government's the only one that I know that can cut a foot off the top of a blanket, sew it on the bottom, and hand it to me and tell me it's longer. Think about that. That's pretty smart. No, this church is all English. Yeah. Yes, this church has, I talked about acculturated levels of acculturation. The Navajos who go to this church are airplane mechanics, nurses, school teachers, a much higher level of enculturation into the Anglo ways of life. So there's no Navajo spoken. I shouldn't say no Navajo spoken, but there's no translation that goes on. There's still Navajo spoken. But, the Navajo language, it's predicted that it will go out, that it will be lost, functionally lost in 20 years. And we have thousands and thousands of speakers right now. Navajo is spoken in town. Every business, if they want to do business, has to have a Navajo speaker because of all the Navajo speakers. But they're saying functionally it'll go out of use in 20 years. I don't see that happening, but I guess the anthropologists know what they're talking about. This is a picture of the Gamerco Church. Down here at the right hand is the garage and the shops. And then right behind the bell tower is where the sanctuary is, and up at the other end is basically an apartment. The parsonage used to be there, and it's where we put teams up. We have, now this summer we're not having as many teams because of everything that is impacting Tony and I's schedule. But usually we have 10 to 12 teams a year. And if you ever come through Gallup, New Mexico on Interstate 40, stop in. We'd love to have you. We have room to put you up, and we will put you up in there. One of the cactus flowers. Now you see those every year. It doesn't take rain for them because they're used to living without water. And just beautiful flowers every springtime. We'll find cows with those jaggers stuck in their nose. And I don't know how they do it, but they, I guess, like to eat those flowers. And they'll have the jaggers in their nose. We have usually a VBS at each church, at least one each year. Different teams. I know different people that I see in here have been out to teach VBS. The children love VBS, but the elders seem to love it more than the children. The elders love to come to VBS. It's an outreach into the community. I'm not going to pull any punches. We struggle with maintaining a follow-up because there's two of us, and you have when there's a VBS going on, you have the vans and buses going out all over the reservation, and I don't even know where they're picking these kids up. You'll start up with 20 kids in the beginning of the week and end up with 120 at the end of the week. But it shares Jesus Christ. There's that same cactus again. You can see what the ground is like. No grass. Chache. This is Grandpa's birthday party. Grandpa has passed on to his reward, and he was saved. He was a believer in Jesus Christ. He had one desire in life, that his entire family would come to Christ. What a beautiful man. spoke not a word of English, worked on the railroad all his life. Family is the big thing. Sage flowers, just beautiful every year. Water is our most important resource. There are 80 wells with windmills on them on the Navajo Nation. And people haul water. We call them the water haulers. They have a big tank on the back of their pickup truck or else on a trailer, and they fill that full of water and they haul it to water their cattle, for their drinking water, they don't wash at home. No one has washers and dryers at home. They all come to town. If you want to start a business in Gallup and make money, either start a car wash or a laundromat. And both of them will do really well. But the water haulers haul every drop of water they use. Water is our most valuable resource in the Southwest and in Gallup. There was a well drilled 6 years ago on the east end of Gallup, and it's over a mile deep, and it hit an aquifer that is a very good aquifer. And the litigation on that well, they figure, will last 15 to 20 years before one drop of water is pumped to be used. And the only thing that's getting rich out of, is there any lawyers in here? Is our legal system. But that shows you what water means. We did, the Gallup Navajo water line has started. It's a 36-inch water line that will go from the San Juan River down to the city of Gallup, and it will water the Navajo Nation as it comes along down through there. And it has finally started after years and years and years of wrangling over funding and so forth. I know we struggle with the amount of money our federal government spends, or at least I certainly do. But we're building infrastructure all over the world, and we have people who haul every drop of water. We have wells on the Navajo Nation that have 19 times the allowable limit of radiation in them. And people are using that water. That would not happen in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. But it's good enough for the Native American people. That's Window Rock. I don't know how many have ever heard of that. That's the one of the landmarks on the Navajo Nation. That's right at the Window Rock where it's like Washington for us. It's where the president of the Navajo Nation stays, and where the Chief Justice and where all the legislators and everything are. And this is the actual Window Rock. That's a picture of the statue for the Code Talkers. How many have heard of the Code Talkers? If you enjoy history, you might read Code Talker by Chester Nez. It's the best book on the Code Talkers, I feel. Very good book on Code Talkers. The Navajo Nation is very proud of their military service. They were fighting for the United States before they were citizens of the United States. Every Navajo who fought in World War II fought without the vote. They did not vote yet. And yet they fought for the country. They have the highest participation in military service of any ethnic group in the United States. very proud of their military history. And I am very proud of them. We can show this later if someone wants to read it. Down here at the bottom, you see a little bit of Navajo writing. The Navajo language is an unwritten language, and I say that for the Navajo it is unwritten. For us, they wrote it down. They didn't write it down. We wrote it so that we could learn to speak Navajo. Speak and read Navajo. Another thing our federal government did was in 1951, they wrote all the laws and the rules of how they were going to work with the Navajo, and they printed it in Navajo. And Mr. Bennett, the Secretary of Agriculture, said, why, Mr. President, are we writing this down? He said, well, so they can read it. And he said, well, it's an unwritten language. The Navajos don't read Navajo. It's an oral language. The Navajo did not get the Bible, the entire Bible, into their language until 1974. And there's an old preacher sitting with another old preacher. The Navajo preacher is one of the original 29 code talkers. He is one of the original 29 Marine code talkers. One of the issues with the code talkers is that there were code talkers before there were World War II Navajo code talkers. The Cherokee code talked in World War I. Little known fact, and so there was some tension there between the two groups of people. This young man is 94 and he's still preaching every Sunday. And I told his wife I thought I would preach for several more years, and she said, Sonny, you got 20 more years, keep at it. So that's my plan. What a wonderful man. Some more of those flowers. Every year we have a picnic with the three churches in the Southwest. We talked about Gamerco Church and Hawanajoni Church. The third church is Saley Church, and it's actually in Arizona. The other two churches are in New Mexico. And we meet for a picnic on we get together Saturday night and Sunday. And that we always have a pastor from somewhere come in and speak to us, bring us the word on Sunday. One year, Pastor Mike was out there and did that for us. It's up in the Chuska Mountains by the side of a lake, by Wheatfields Lake. Beautiful place. You can see there's much more grass here. We're probably at 7,000 feet there. Much more grass and some water, and we get all three churches together. And we put up a big top, and we'll end up with around 150 of people from our churches, but then a lot of people will stop in. And the revival is a cultural event on the Navajo Nation. Any given night, there are revival tents. You know, I could drive to 10 of them any night through the summer. Well, actually from April till November, right around Gallup. And there will be revivals, and like our revival at Easter lasting to midnight, the summer revivals will last till 1, 2, and 3 o'clock in the morning. An enormous cultural event. I shouldn't have put this one in. This is 3 pastors. We had just put the tent up and we were really tired. This is Dave Yost, and that's me, and back in the back is Everett Teller. Everett Teller is a Navajo pastor, and he pastors the Saley Church, him and his wife, Mary. Well, in fact, I think they've been here, haven't they? Yeah. There you can see on Sunday afternoon with everyone there. And of course, following the worship service that can last a long time, we have an enormous meal. It's not only churches in central Pennsylvania that feed you good. They feed you good in New Mexico too. Ladies love to cook, and us men are glad that they do. Much different cooking than here. You would get fry bread out there. The favorite snack of the children at the flea market is a dill pickle in a bag. Watermelon is the most favorite vegetable or fruit. I'm not going to get into that argument, but whichever it is, love watermelon. Navajos love watermelon. And yes, it snows in New Mexico. This is where the most of our water comes from, snow in the wintertime. 2 weeks ago, we had 10 inches of snow. So it snows. Probably this morning at our house, it was probably 22 degrees at our house. So
What would be this afternoon?
this afternoon, it'll be 72. Anybody care if I take this coat off? See, I dressed up for you this morning. I wore a coat. I told somebody that's the only reason I went to New Mexico to preach. I could preach in blue jeans and a shirt. So, no, that's not why God called us. New Mexico has a very old Hispanic community, has a very old heritage. We fail to realize that before there was anybody on the East Coast, there was colonization going on in New Mexico and Texas and Arizona by the Spanish people. Many, many beautiful old churches. When Tony and I get a day away and get to travel a little bit, we take back roads and look for these old Hispanic churches. Most of them are, sad to say, are in very bad repair because they're in outlying communities and they were made there. This is an all adobe church, and after a while that adobe gets sad and starts coming together, and you can see the large steel braces on the side to keep it from falling down, but most of them don't have that repair work done to them. These little ends, that's where the flower has died, and there will be a fresh new leaf grow on there. And those leaves are picked, and they make jelly out of them, they fry them. It's a food source, an older food source, and very, very useful. I forget the long pointy cactus. I think I have a picture of it in here. Is used for, it is dug up, and the roots are mashed and treated, and they are used for soap, for shampoo. And one of the cultural things is grandmother makes soap before a young lady goes through her coming of age ceremony. and then the grandmother washes the young lady's hair with this homemade soap, and their hair is beautiful and shiny, beautiful black hair. There's some of our folks, the Brisbane Church of God gave us a communion table. And this of course, is Tony. And this is Miss Maybell. That is James Manning's wife. And Maybell is a prayer warrior. And Maybell can pray down heaven. And if you need something prayed for, just get Maybell to pray for you, and you'll feel like you were prayed for. I can tell you that. Nellie just lost her sister this past week, and we buried her. Nellie is 84, and this is her son, Alfred. And if you ever get out there, he'll talk your leg off. He could talk the leg off a brass kettle. And this is James in the back. James is one of the best translators from English to Navajo on the Navajo Nation. James, I was there for several years, and finally James used an English word when he was translating. That he said the month of August, or he said August when I was preaching. And after it was over, I said, James, why did you use August in English? I said, don't you have a name for August, for the month? He said, oh, absolutely. He said, but none of the people know it. So he used August. The Navajo language has no P sound in it. It is much different. There's several other sounds, but I know of that one. The first borrowed word that Navajo borrowed from English was jelly, which I found interesting. I like jelly, so I thought that was a good word to borrow. There are, when you get over the count of 30, very few people will be able to count over 30. If they are full Navajo speakers. There are some ways to explain numbers over 30, but very few people have an understanding of that. So 30 is about the limit of numbers in Navajo. Here, every service, there is special music, and it is unrehearsed. It is very, very impromptu. In fact, we have some people who come to visit who cannot understand what is going on because it is so impromptu. You'll see the traditional dress here that Nellie has on, and Marie, and the other Marie. That's the elder ladies will wear the traditional dress. James has pretty much the traditional dress of a male, other than most men would have a bolo tie on and a concho belt of some kind. And of course, both of these traditional dress are only traditional since they've had contact with the Anglos, either Hispanic or English. This, you'll see this, it is a little dated because I have Pastor Charlie still in Mechanicsburg. But he is preaching there, and James is translating his message. I wondered when I first got there how James was doing translating, because I didn't know what was going on. And I finally figured out that they were laughing at the right time. And so they were either laughing at me or my message was getting across in the translation. Some more little flowers that are just waiting for the water from the Lord. This is Eddie and Courtney. Eddie is no longer with the family. Not necessarily his fault, but the family is divided up. Pray for Courtney and her brothers and sisters. The dry, sandy soil. That's for the hunters. That's an antelope out on the Great Plains. We can see a lot of antelope. There's elk. We have very good elk hunting right in our area. There's mule deer more north of us. Of course, there's coyote and fox and rabbits and squirrels and lots of different animals. But very sparse because it's so wide open out there, so big. There's the inside. See the people there for a revival service. Revival service, as I said, is the community event. One of the flowers before it's opened up. And some of our little girls dressed up for Easter. They love to dress up for Easter also. In fact, this picture is old. They are grown pretty well up now. There's the, I think it's called, is it a guave? Yucca. I always get that wrong, yucca. The yucca flower, those flowers the Navajos pick, and they bread them and deep fry them. And this is the plant that they make the soap out of the roots. You can see the strings along here. In ages past, those strings were pulled off and used for sewing off of that plant. There is so much to learn about the uses of what all they use things for. Here you can see the one deciduous tree that grows. It's called a gambler oak, and that's about the only deciduous tree that grows natural and wild out there. There's not many of them at all. 3 pastors' wives at Howan's 25th anniversary. Geneva McNutt, Maybell, and my bride. That I didn't show you before, but the rugs that are hanging and that one back there, there's 3 rugs there that are woven by one of the ladies that was in that picture singing when she was allowed to weave. She's not allowed to weave anymore due to her eyes. But we have a lot of weavers out there yet. And they're bringing new weavers on, young people who are learning to weave.
John, have you eaten fried duck?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
We'll have to remedy that.
Yeah, we'll have to try that. I try to stay away from the deep fried foods because these doctors say they're not good for you. I don't know. And you can get enough fry bread out there. I mean, fry bread is the staple. We have one family that uses a 25-pound bag of flour every week making fry bread. They make a stack of fry bread that high every night. And fry bread is just, it's flour and deep fried in lard. It isn't any good unless it's deep fried in lard, you know, sort of like mother's pies. That's what made them good. Everybody, well, anyways, but that lard, and but fry bread is good, but not good for you. That's a cha'o. It's just like a summer kitchen. The traditional Navajo will cook out there in the summer. They will eat out there. They will just about do everything. If it's really hot, sleep out there under that shade. The humidity is so low out in New Mexico that if you get in the shade, you'll be cool. Now, Tony will argue with that, on that, but get in the shade and you'll cool down. Get a little bit of breeze going and it's cool. Another different flower. This is Nellie and Ella again. Two saintly ladies who love the Lord. We should pray for their sons, that all of their sons would come to the understanding that their mothers have. We worked on Ella's house and got it all fixed up. I should get a new picture. We've put windows in it and painted it and done a lot to it. She's very appreciative. And we would ask that you would pray for Michael, her son, that he would stay on the path the Lord has set before him. He struggles, like so many people out there, he struggles with alcohol. Alcohol is just a tremendous scourge to our people out there. Oh, yes. On the Navajo Nation, before the recession, the unemployment rate was 54%. Yeah. Right around 50% of our people do not have electricity. Right around 50% do not have any running water. Around 50%, of course, don't have sewage because they don't have running water. About 56% of the houses are heated entirely with wood or coal. And so it's a very backwoodsy existence in a lot of cases. Different type of yucca. Many people make their living by producing jewelry or handicrafts. In fact, I forgot my paper. We are starting we have a website started that will be selling Navajo crafts made by our people, and we hope to cut out the middleman and be able to get them a fair wage, because if they take their crafts to town, they are bought up by dealers, and they're just beat down, and they have a tendency to not take crafts to town until they need money for something, and they know they need money, so there's no bargaining chip. It's just, here's what we'll give you. So we're hoping to do that. I also, if you, I send out a newsletter or like an email prayer update every couple weeks. If you would like to be on that, give me your email address or better yet, get my prayer card and send me an email, then I'll have it right and I can return it hopefully correctly to you. There's Courtney in her traditional dress. Very sweet little girl. And there's the extent of my gardening. When I lived in Pennsylvania, I was a great gardener. And that's the flowers I grew one year. It is so hard to garden out there with no, very little rainfall. It's a whole different ball game. Questions? We have, looks like 2 minutes. The what? Gallup American, yeah. No? Great American. Yeah, Great American. And Hawan-Dajoni is house beautiful. Dajoni is beautiful. Anything else? Boy, I must have done a good job.
Well, we certainly want to thank you. I hope that you enjoyed that, seeing the slides and kind of reliving some of those experiences for those of you who have been there and learning more about it for those of you who haven't. So in about 15 minutes, we'll begin our worship service. In the meantime, fellowship. Let's pray. Father God, we again thank you for this day and for the blessings that you've given. We ask, O Lord, that your blessing would be upon us as we learn more about your people, whether they are here in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, or whether they are in New Mexico or Arizona or any place else in the world. Lord, we're thankful for this day and for the blessings you've given. In Jesus we pray.